guys, we back here on video 4. Video 3 was, as if we recap, um, we generated the scenes, we added the floor, the back wall. We managed to put everything in groups, so now we have the scene is on a group, the actual cup, the elements, the cup, sleeve, and the lid is all in one group. So now we have these set up on groups. If you go to shader trees, we have at least the cup elements are all within the group. So I think this is important just to get everything organized, and so as we start working, it's easier to just track things and not get lost in the process. So now with that, this video 4 here, we're gonna focus on coloring, texturing, and then just the shader tree before we texture everything. So we'll review a little bit more about shader tree altogether and camera. So I'm actually gonna, one thing I didn't do is like I had a folder with cameras on something that I had already preset. So what I'm going to do is actually delete these. Let's say delete 3 of these guys. And you might not have these always on your end. What you probably do is you probably have one camera. So I'm just gonna be fair and just add one just as well. So I'm gonna add a camera. So from the item list, I'm adding a camera in. So it's basically in a similar area where you're at. So what I'm gonna do here is gonna set the camera. See, it comes in huge, and this is actually a typical thing. When you select the camera, it comes in, and depending where you are, it just comes in very big. So if you go under where it says camera, display, size, I usually just actually set this either to like 0.1 or just 0. It's just so that it's actually a lot smaller than whatever object we have, and just even if you click 0, it doesn't matter. It's just gonna be smaller. And there he goes. Not that we're going to be seeing the camera anyway, because what we do is navigate, control space, perspective. We navigating through the object, and our eyes are the camera. So if we'll move around to where we want the angle to land, and that's what we'll do. We could actually just move things around and say, okay, you know what? I would love to have generate an image that looks similar to this view. So you could just pan out, pan in, and then you select your camera again, properties. So on the camera properties, you're gonna see in the bottom here this transform. It positions the camera, rotates the camera, scales the camera. It tells you the target distance, and then you have this button here that is called sync to view. When you select this, what it does is actually, no matter what you select in your perspective, is going to sync into your camera. So click on it, and you see how the camera automatically, it's almost like you take a snapshot, or you just presets itself into the position of the scene you like. So now when you go to over here on the left hand side, which says perspective, and you go to camera view, in camera, which is the camera we actually selected. Let me delete. I'm gonna delete this old one that I have as well. That way I don't confuse you. Delete yes to all. So we got this new camera that we actually brought in. We pan down, and you see now, if you go to, we went to camera view. We saw the camera. It sets itself up to where you your eyes or you saw the view that you like. In my case, this is what I like. And regardless, we still in camera view. Up here on the preview, you could actually select control option and just still zoom up within the camera. So you're actually zooming in and out in the camera. And you see the target distance, how it goes in and out on your right hand side panel if you have camera in the item mode. So target distance, you could keep moving back. And the further back you go, the more kind of realistic it looks. Like a 35mm camera. You see the angle here, focal length. You see it's if you bring the camera in, just the camera itself, and zoom up, it starts to look a lot strange, and everything just kind of widens up because that's, that's what cameras do. Um, but it's strange. But if you actually back up, right? So you're backing out to where you think, well, this look more like a realistic camera, and where you see focal length, just drag this in. It stays within that, you know, that realistic mode that you like, or that, not with that fish eye look. And just drag it in 50 millimeters, 60 millimeters. So I mean, if you want to have a play with this, I think this is pretty cool. And like if you go on the right view, like control space, right view, and then you just pan out a little bit. Here's the camera. So in order to shift, you could actually shift things by hand as well. So if you wanna do any adjustments within the camera itself, or you just want to like play with it just to see what it does, just click on the item mode. Um, and in item mode, it activates the camera. If you select camera, item mode, now you could activate it. So if you click on W, so W is move, but what are you moving from the camera? Several things. This middle um, line that you see coming across is an indication of depth of field and focal. So like the focal point. So if you go to camera, let's go to camera effect. So you see camera effect here, you got what is called depth of field, which is what's also in a real realistic camera. If you set this on and you actually move the camera on, anything that goes from this point over, or at least in this specific area, will be focused, and everything from, I guess, like the second you move shift away from the blue dot at the end, it starts to slowly blur out. So anything back here will be out of focus. We could review this a little bit more once we start on rendering and texturing and everything. I just wanted to give you like a brief overview with the camera. So I'm just going to turn this off for now. Click on camera view, control shift, and let's go to the top so that you can see. So another thing that you can see here is like where, we kind of eyeball the camera. So when we were panning around in the perspective view, what we wind up doing is eyeball a sort of like a scene that we liked, and we just synced into it so that we could say, great, this is what we like, we're doing this. So now you see, now we can see actually where we're at. So if you see the Z and the X, which is these black lines that divide the center and middle of the scene, we are a little off here. We could actually make sure that we're right in the middle of the cup by just moving this red handle over here. So you can see if you move it in the position you move it, on the right hand side, you're going to start to see that the numbers go up or they go down. So you could actually either put it right in the middle, or if you want, just select 0, and that's 100% right in the middle. You back up again, it looks like it's 0 and it's going all the way to, so something is turned right a little bit. And this is just little minute things. Like if we would have left it the way it was, it's fine, it would have rendered gray, we could just crop it in Photoshop or anything, but this is just being insanely detailed. So the same thing is with rotate. So if you look at the right view, the top view, and you notice that you shifted over to the right a little bit. So that's all based on rotation. So if you see here, the Y and the X, they minus, you got all these different numbers, and what do? I just move them around, just shift around, and you see this goes up and down, this goes right and left. So so obviously we want to make sure that this is 100% 0. And let's just actually zoom up around so that you can see what they do. It's just as like if you click the E, you're rotating around an object, you could rotate the camera. So the settings that you see here are based on when we were panning around, but we could move them ourselves. So basically, you see this red arrow, I mean red silhouette here. You can move this up and down. The green, it moves, and that actually moves the camera up and down. If you hold the green handle here, right and left, it just moves the camera right and left, and so forth, so on and so forth. This actually pans it in a whole totally different dramatic angle. This blue, so it shifts around. So basically, you could do anything with any of the objects or the cameras or the lights. So they all rotate, move around. So this is just to give you an idea. So let's get past the camera now and go back into the camera view so that we could see our cup. If I bring the preview here, everything is kind of blown up because we didn't add any, we didn't adjust any of the materials, but we could do so now. And for now, we're just gonna put some what I call clays, which are basic gray colors to define the object. So if we go to where's my backdrop? Okay, so we got the backlight, back wall, floor. Apparently I lost my cup material, so let's quickly do that again. Cup. Cup base. Sleeve. And lid. So let's go back in here. Select these three. Group them and call this the cup. Alright, so apparently I lost them, or maybe I didn't save them from the last video. So okay, so now let's go back here. Let's go to the cup base and just get like a something that we could, so that we could be able to see what's happening here. Let's set this to like 50, which is the diffuse, and that's just the amount of how bright of a color or something is. So right now it's set to white. I'm gonna put a neutral color. Let's say drag this slider all the way to let's say 5, 4. Yeah, that'll work. Just the middle, so you got like a gray color. And then let's see what else we do. Well, a little reflection. While we're here, let's just turn these off. Let's turn the sleeve and the lid, so that we could at least just have the cup and have like a like a nice material. Let's enlarge this. So let's add like 2 for reflection. And 25 for Fresnel. And I'll explain what these do. The one thing that I'm not getting is like that reflection the way we want it. I have a feeling it's because this is not on. Did some of it. Floor. Let's go back to cup. Alright, let's go to the cup. Let's make this just a hair darker so that we can see what's happening. Put another, let's make this 5, which is the reflection. I just want to see where my light is hitting and why is my object looking the way it is. And let me just turn off, this is a good thing too, you could quickly just turn off the scene just to see what's happening. Okay. Shading, floor. What is that? That's the. floor. So, okay, so let's just actually turn this off, which is on base shader tree, visible to reflections, so that we could get a little bit more information. So, okay, so that's done. Let's just actually go into cup again, and we are gonna copy this material. Let's just call it clay for now, or gray, gray into clay, and duplicate this, and just drop this inside of that folder where it says sleeve. Clone that again, duplicate it, and drag it inside of the lid. The material below that is name materials, we could just delete those on every one of them. Delete. So now you just have all of them saying gray. So if we put all of these up in item list, which is the lid, the sleeve, so now they are all actually have that gray material, which at least allowed us to see what's really happening. The same thing we're gonna do with well, to some degree we're gonna go into let's say the floor. The floor right now, the only properties that it has is 80% diffuse. Let's just bring that to like 50. It's just gonna gray out a little bit, and then what we'll do is actually put a reflection amount. Let's say 5 again, so that it's a little bit reflective and it picks up a little bit of that cup environment. I'll just bring it up a little bit more. Let's say 12. See what happens. All right. So that's starting to look like it's grounded a little bit. But I wanted to actually blend in with the background a little bit. So I'm gonna keep raising this up till I see the horizon here kind of morph into that background a little bit. So let's say 16 and see what happened. And yeah, but I'm happy enough with the reflection, so maybe I'll increase the diffuse amount to like 60. And I think this, all these you see now is kind of, it disappears, which is what we're looking for. And now what I want to do is blur the floor a little bit, so it's a little bit more to real world. And you just click on the blur reflections, and you get that subtle blur it. Well, and you see that it still look like there's some sort of like floor going on, but I actually want to bring just a hair more of a clear coat on it. So if you put 20 on this, what it does, it sharpens some of these areas in the bottom, so they look like it's really bolted down. You go 45, just bring it up a little bit, and here we go. So now you have like this whole thing is morphing in pretty good. If I go into the camera view, just select the camera and that focal point, let's just move to the right. Well, you can see it anyway. Let me see. If you drag that in just a hair, just so that we could get more of that cup, right? Just drag the focal point, the focal length a little bit, so that we could actually have this. We could actually move the position too as well. Let me see. Do we want to? I think we should move it up a little bit. There we go. Wrong one. Move it up, just a little bit on the Y. And there you go. So that at least it centers it right on the cup, and we could actually see what we're working with, right? So now when we get to this point, we could actually, at this point we should have the background. It's nicely lit, the floor, and you could play with the floor a little bit more if you want. You could make it more reflective by increasing that reflection if you want to see more of it. I mean, I would not do colors just yet, just so that we could focus on the actual items in the jar. I mean, the cup and the lid and so on. For now, I would just turn off the sleeve and just focus on these two particular um, objects. Um, so okay, so now we'll go to shader tree, and I think for argument's sakes, I think this will be a good opportunity to have yet another camera, so that we could have two different cameras. So I'll tell you what, let's just add another camera. Add camera, and if the minute you add another camera, it's just gonna just land always below the floor. So at this point, we go to perspective, and if you go to item list, oh no, my bad, wait a minute. Let's select the camera first. Display. Display size, let's just make this to 0 so that we can see what we're doing. We're just gonna kind of pan around and just kind of find like a nice, like I guess like an angle shot of this jar, and then we'll play around with it so that we have two shots, one sort of straight and then another one in some sort of dramatic angle, and just see what that looks like. Right. Do something like that, you know. And then you just kind of go back the properties, and then you sync that camera, and we could just call this camera angle, and drop it in the cameras folder. And you can name the other one straight, so that you know how to go back from one to the other. So now when you go to camera view here, command space, you'll see the camera we just basically synced on. It's actually now on recorded. So when you go to preview, and you drag down here to the angle camera, you see that you have this nice angle view. So if you really want to adjust this a little bit more so you have more of a closer in, just under straight, let's just move this forward. Okay, 1 second. Make sure you select on the angle camera, focal length, just drag. Right, and that should at least give you some kind of like, you know, sort of dramatic, it's like a whole dramatic look of this cup. One thing I'm noticing is just that like on the lid, you see the top lid, the actual lid doesn't show the opposite side colors. It's like transparent, almost like a ghost. So if you go to shader on cup, then you go where it says lid, click on the lid, and then way down in the bottom here, you're gonna find it says double materials beyond the lid. Where's the double sided? Oh, there it goes. Right in the bottom here, you're gonna see, you click on this double sided button, and you're gonna see that this automatically is gonna go on, so that it's actually colored from both sides. Although the polygons are flipped out, it's reading the same information. Another way to do this without having to have the problem is rebuild this whole entire thing. You know, just copy a scale down and then just bridge in the corner here, so that you don't have to ever, we could texture both sides, you know, do different billion things. So that actually gives you a good idea what some of these things do in material. I think now I would like to go on and show you a little bit about the coloring, and we just focus a little bit more on color here and just going through some of these materials and things like that before we do texturing and UV. I think I'm gonna leave UV for like video 4, that way videos are not so lengthy. Number one, I could post these on online, and you could actually focus on one task at a time and just go refer to them as needed. All right. So far we actually you know, assign colors, names to all the different materials. We added some information to the floor. One other thing that I wanted to do while we're here on the floor is show you just one other thing that is actually pretty interesting, because some floors have different materials. So if you have, if you go here on the floor and go to enhance textures, and then you add a noise, there's a lot of different textures here. So I just go to this one that is called FBM, which is noise. And you see that it just breaks apart the floor a little bit. So it's almost like if you want to create some sort of like marble, or just add a little texture to the floor so that it looks like it's something that's been, you know, used before and it's not so perfect. What I normally do is add a little bit of a bump map in there to break up the floor a little bit. So but I want to reduce the size to this pattern because it's a bit too large. The way to do that is just I click on the side here and just like backspace, and then I usually put like a number, 5, let's say. And when you click return, it just reduces everything just a little smaller. And if you feel you want to go even smaller, you go back again, click on backspace, let's say 3, and it just reduces everything all around. So now what I want to do is I want to change this into like a bump map, so that it's like look like it's breaking a little bit. So you just right click where it says diffuse on this filter that we just brought in, and just goes from diffuse to bump. Now immediately the bump is going to be set to 100, so it's going to look really weird. So we have to just bring that bump map to like 1 or 2, and I show you how. So see how it's like really bumpy and kind of like weird. So let's just click on here, and you see the opacity, bump, texture layer. Just bring this down to 1 and see what it does. So you see it just breaks it out but just a little bit. So you've seen pictures and it has like, it's never perfect, it just breaks apart a little bit. So this is why you want to be able to show in your visuals that it has some sort of like life to some degree. And it's a good one to use. I use noise for everything. I pretty much put noise on anything that is actually created, just so that it could just break apart some of the textures, or in general, like let's say if you copy that and paste that on the cup, you might do something subtle, but it's interesting to just right click, duplicate that noise, and drop it on the cup. So if you look at it, you see how it gives you a little bit of a, it just breaks apart somewhat like that perfection that is going on. And sometimes it's always good to just like play around and see what 4 would do to this thing. And you know what, oh wow, this is really, severe. I would like to actually bring that down just a hair, for at least for the cup part. So and that's what it is. It's actually moving up and down. I want it to be uniform. All right, so let me just back click to. Oh, but it's only doing it for that. Okay, that direction. So you see, it gives you a little bit of that. It's almost like a brush aluminum. So, but in this case, I just want to actually have everything to be very uniform. So I'm just gonna copy this 20 ml and just place it here. So it's like a little bit. All right, lock again here. Click. Let's go smaller. Yeah. So you see, this is kind of what I'm looking now. It's something very so that it look like is to some degree it's been used very slightly. Let me just go back a little bit more. So you see now you start to get that like effect that will make sense in a cup like this. So now that we have the nice texture, let's just bring the, the size a little bit. Just click to 1 instead of 4, and you see you have just a little bit of that noise is just good enough to make it seem like it's a little bit more realistic. So, you know, these are the things that are always good to keep in mind when you're actually working on objects, and things that, depending on what it is, we could actually add some of that imperfections slightly, just enough so that it looks nice, not too much that it's gonna look ugly. Um, with that, I want to work a little bit on the colors here. So you have this gray. I always like to keep a layer of gray of the gray color as a base, just so that I could go back and forth. So I'm gonna clone this, duplicate it, and then this particular one we want to make it like a matte, let's say a green, matte green, kind of like the sample we had. I show you right now, like that sample that we worked on. Um, and on your end, you know, once you get it to a specific point, you could actually make it. You know, I would suggest for you to explore any color you like, and kind of design something that you fancy. All right, so let's go to this panel here, and you have this chart in which you could actually select colors, any color you want, um, and you could actually numerically actually put the numbers. So like if you have a RGB reading from something, you could just place that on here. Another thing you could do is you could click again on this box here, and it'll bring you to a slider, so you could actually customize the colors you like, and again name them, or hex colors. You could add hex colors if you like. That's actually readings from a lot of printers use this in retouchers. Um, and you have other options here. So I mean, you could go to CMYK, which I really try to keep away from. I work all RGB and then convert CMYK. Um, and I believe that we were going for like a green. Um, 1 second, I gotta bring this up so that you can see what's happening. So this is a green here, and if you see, you could actually work a color, and then once you work the color you like, you can memorize or take a screenshot of of the hex color, the RGB reading. Ultimately, you could actually just drag this in here so that you know. Well, it went into the next online. It'll just actually memorize the color you just created. So with that, you could just say okay, and now you see that it's loaded up on this side. Um, and this is actually I'm just trying to run you through how to load colors in there. I noticed that my bump is still a little high, so I'm just gonna reduce it to like maybe 0.5, so it's not so dramatic. And I want to make this like a matte green, so that it's a little bit nicer. I think matte green looks, it just gives it a softer effect. Now the reflection was a bit high, so let's bring this to 2. Right, so and increase the roughness. What increasing the roughness, what it does is actually shift these white areas. They spread a little bit softer out, so that it looks more of like a softer entire cup, instead of like what you see here, that it just, you have this matte, then you just soft here, but it's drastic. So you still see too much of like these highlights. So if I increase this to like, let's say 80, what it does, it uniforms everything a little bit nicer, you see, so it's not so much of those little lines in between, and you have a little bit of that noise that we kept. Even if you actually increase the reflection to 3, and then this actually just comes out a little bit, it's a little nicer. Let's say, see, so it's softer all around. So you could explore, you could actually work on things like this if you like. Just do something with, you know, call it green, and then do a different color, so you could have different colors built up for each and one of the items. So now the base cup is green, and then I want to make the lid green too, but I want to make the lid green but shiny. So if I actually right click on this, duplicate, then just click on the lid, bring this green up here, right? It's just automatically gonna go matte just like the color we did in the bottom. Um, but in this particular case, I just wanna, okay, let me just click out of blurriness because I wanna make it shiny. That part I want it to be shiny on the top. But not as shiny, like right now it's a bit shinier than I kind of want. Let's just make it 2% shiny. And oh, let's just click double size here for this one so that you can see the bottom here. You could actually even add a little bit of that noise so you could break up some of that. And then just plates it instead. You can see a little bit of, like, this is usually what happens with plastic. Nothing is ever 100% perfect. And now I do want it to kind of blend in a little bit more. I don't want it to be so shiny. So it's almost like so how would I do that? All right, so let me bring the roughness on this. There's no need to be 80 for this one. That's more for the base. If I bring this down to like 20, say tap, and then just go to blurry reflections. Is actually gonna give me a little bit of what I'm looking for. So you see it's blurred this edges a little bit, but it's not as blurry as down here. If I want to add just a little bit more sheen, because I just want it to be just a hair more, just go to clear coat, put at 20, clear them out, and you see you start to get a nice shiny color. Alright, so with that said, we save just so that we could have everything saved, and we could always look at this straight. You have an idea what you have going. So far we at this point, I think this would be a good point to stop for shaders, and then I'll work on another one just with the UV maps, and then after the UV maps we'll work on yet another one for rendering. And I think again this is just to keep the videos not as long. I could upload them easier, and then and you could obviously keep them and just refer back to them easier, and focus on individual videos. All right, thanks again. Bye.